Alrighty. So here we go. Thank you so much, Dr. Sterling, for agreeing to meet with us. First off, before we get started, just wanted to know just a little bit more about you. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
That's funny. What would you like to know? There's a lot.
I know. Just a little bit about your background, what you do, and maybe a little bit of how you got there.
All right. Well, I'm a proud product of Chicago South Side. Went to University of Illinois for medical school. Have additional degrees from Northwestern and Harvard in executive education from Dartmouth. I am a physician, public health professional, serial healthcare entrepreneur. Written 9 books.
Wow.
Spent my time with hundreds of medical student mentees, excuse me. So yeah, it's all about reaching forward and bringing folks along for the ride.
Absolutely. So it seems like you wear a lot of hats, and I'm sure you're busy, super busy on a daily. But just
We don't do busy, and those of us who are going into medicine need to learn the difference between being busy and being productive.
absolutely.
Actually, my bestseller is called "There are 72 Hours in a Day: Using Efficiency to Better Enjoy Every Part of Your Life." I'm an emergency physician by training, and there's many parallels in that. The journey through medical school and especially through residency is one that teaches you that busy is a state of mind, productivity is a state of accomplishment, and that's what you want to aspire to. So let's get that word out of your vernacular right now because the rest of your life is going to be active.
Right.
I have to make it productive.
Absolutely. I love that. It's not busy, it's productive. That's amazing. I love that viewpoint. I know you do a lot of different things, but can you just let us know what an average day in your life looks like?
Well, an average day, if you want to have a great day, you have to have a great morning. So philosophically, my goal has always been to jump out of bed in the morning and fall into bed into night. Part of what I have learned over the years is that my morning brain is the time of the day in which I tackle the biggest challenges of the day. I love writing in the morning because that clarity and perspective is something that lends itself toward writing. Um, you know, there's a lot. Your activities actually speak to your priorities in life.
Mhm.
So if you have a family, if you have a business, if you have a medical practice, you will learn in time to order those things. You can't play whack-a-mole with your life. You can't bounce around here, there, and everywhere. So your day is based on accomplishment. And one of the things that I'll say, and I always say this to each of the hundreds of medical students that I've mentored, is don't forget that healthcare is the largest industry in the United States. The healthcare system is different than the healthcare industry. And what I want everyone to remember is that when you tell me what you're going to do when you grow up, finish the sentence by saying, and I'm going to own it. Okay. So what I do over the course of the day is order my steps based on productivity, based on what I'm trying to accomplish. And one thing that you'll learn over time, and I spend a lot of my day doing this, is that whether it's as a physician, a parent, a business owner, or just as a friend, there are things that you can do that no one else can do. And the highest levels of productivity are to be found in spending your time doing the things that only you can do. So
Mhm.
it's not other people's money sometimes, it's other people's time.
Right.
So if you surround yourself with a crew, whether it's friends, families, employees, or otherwise, learn to do the things that only you can do, such that others who are part of your network, your organization, your circle of friends, do the things that hold you up. Just to give you an example, as an emergency physician, early in your career, ego is a thing, and you become a much better physician when you come to realize that it's not about being right, it's about getting it right.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if it's the nurse, the tech, the unit secretary, or whomever actually helps deliver the best possible care to your patient. You're still the physician at the end of the day, and you're more of a quarterback of a team than the person that necessarily has to do everything, make every decision. So spending your day falls in line if you philosophically figure that out. One of the ways in which I define success to younger individuals, and I told this to my son a very long time ago, and still am waiting for him to adopt this philosophy, is that one measure of success is figuring out what you eventually are going to have to figure out as soon as possible. So there's some undeniable truths about life, some undeniable truths about efficiency, productivity, and happiness. The sooner you figure that stuff out, and that's why mentors are so important.
Yeah,
better off you're going to be, because instead of looking at the people that are around you, and I'm talking to the medical students here, instead of looking at your mentors as people that are intimidating or unattainable, look at them as shoulders on which you can leap to higher heights.
absolutely.
That's really important. So my day is a constellation of putting all of this into practice. It's not even about, in my book, in that particular book, I talk about the levels of productivity, and productivity is not even close to being the highest level. It's an essential level. You go from being organized to being productive. You go from being productive to being efficient. You go from being efficient to being prolific. Okay. And then once you're prolific, you're too young to remember the original movie, The Matrix, but I like to think of myself moving um, in and out of space and time, completely oblivious to what time of day it is, or whatever else is going on. And that's the level of efficiency, productivity, and prolificness that you'll acquire over the course of your career. So that's my day. And that's why the book is titled There Are 72 Hours in a Day. It's not about working harder. It's not even working about smarter. It's about accomplishing things irrespective of the limitations of space, time, and perceived capabilities.
Wow, that's amazing. I definitely grew up on The Matrix, the trilogy, so I love that movie. And that's amazing. Seems like you figure out a way to really jam pack everything that you need to and towards accomplishment. And it's like it's a daily journey for sure. Waking up and tackling your to do and accomplishing whatever you set out to. So that's awesome. Have you always wanted to become a physician, or where did
Oh,
that come?
yeah. Yeah. God bless my mother, and hopefully she's enjoying heaven. But uh, if there's ever a time that a mother would be justified in lying to a child, I appreciate the way she did it to me. I just happened to be born on Martin Luther King's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Um, my father was shot in the mean streets of Chicago when I was 6, and she had the wisdom to appoint MLK as a role model for me. And believe it or not, it took me a few years into that process before I realized he wasn't a physician. After all, he had a doctor title. And back then, by the way, it's kind of funny because now, people use doctor titles like it's government cheese. Everybody wants to be a doctor, doctor, doctor. But back when I was coming up, people didn't call themselves doctors, they were doctorates.
Mhm.
And lawyers didn't care to be doctors, for example, but physicians were the only doctors on the yard. And so when Dr. King was presented as Dr. King, I just kind of assumed he was a physician. I wanted to be like him. And that meant two things. It meant that I wanted to save the world, and it meant I wanted to be a physician. So that was somewhere between the ages of 6 and 12. And by the time I'd actually figured out all that he was, I was already in love with medicine, and took it the rest of the way.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard Dr. Martin Luther King being the inspiration for becoming a physician. That's amazing. Um, what does it mean to you to be a black male physician today?
Um, that's the wrong question. I think that one's blackness is a self-evident truth. I don't define myself by being black, even though I am raging black. Anybody that knows me would tell you that my pursuit is of excellence. And excellence requires no apologies, accepts no excuses, and isn't defined by color. The work that I do around the world, and one of the things that I learned was that when I left America to start doing business abroad, which I do, have a big presence on the continent, the motherland. Um, I've done work in 5 different continents, actually, but that's another conversation. You learn that when you leave this country, you're no longer viewed as Black, but you're viewed as American.
Mhm.
And learning that and being required to represent yourself with a level of excellence consistent with what used to be the American brand compels you to carry yourself in a certain way here. Being a Black male has always in this country meant you have to be twice as good to get half as far. But what that has meant for my generation in particular is that you got a bunch of people that are walking around who are simply twice as good. So the inference, and the reason why I would repudiate the question is that the inference that being a Black male is a category that I have to ascribe to. In this country, there are connotations to being a Black male. There's symbolism, there's stereotypes, there's limitations that are placed upon you once you are viewed as a Black male. When I walk into a room, I own the room. I represent excellence. I do things as well as any of my colleagues. Excellence requires no apologies and accepts no excuses. So that is what I strive. And as I said at the beginning, my blackness is a self-evident truth. And the things that I do as a black man should make um, whoever cares to be proud, proud, because that's what I'm striving for. And that should be transportable, whether I'm in a black room, a white room, a foreign room, or whatever the case would be.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Did you always feel that way, or how did you grow to attain that?
Once again, my father died when I was 6, and my mother never attained any lofty profession. Her ambition was to raise her children and to have them be productive members of society and safe, um, based on from whence we came. One of the things that I remember quite vividly that was true then and is still true now is that you visualize how people of certain class, it's not always race, sometimes it's class, you visualize how people of a certain class are treated. And you don't want to go back there. You don't want to be subject to what people in the lower classes in this country have to deal with. Oppression is real. And that taught me that as I live my life, I aspire to have people have to deal with me much more than I have to deal with them because there's 400 years of history that shows how we will be treated when we have to deal with them.
Mhm.
So yeah, control your environment, own your environment, and you'll live a happier life, a freer life, and you'll be a lot less subject to nonsense. So much of the nonsense that stereotypically happens to blacks, kind of it's water off a duck's back. I'm oblivious to it. It doesn't affect me. You just don't put yourself in situations where bad things can happen, and you can live to a different degree, a freer existence in this country. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Still, at its best, this is a country that is the beacon of the rest of the world. We just have to find our way back to that.
absolutely, for sure. That's amazing. Just moving on to our next question. How do you feel about the continued lack of representation as it goes to um, Black males in this space?
Well, a generation ago, the representation has always been poor. Um, we've never really achieved more than 3% of the physician population in this country. Um, a generation ago, medical students were 80% male, black medical students were 80% male and 20% women. And now that ratio has reversed. So the issue of representation has some pretty significant ramifications, not for the sake of um, being equal in job pursuits, but
Mhm.
for what it means in terms of healthcare outcomes. Healthcare disparities, social determinants of health are real things. And public health data shows pretty clearly that better healthcare outcomes are produced in diversity communities when that care is being delivered by culturally sensitive, if not specific, individuals. So the answer to your question is pretty straightforward. The paucity of Black males in medicine means that Black males are going to have worse healthcare outcomes. And sure enough, if you actually look at the public health data, Black males have literally the worst healthcare outcomes of any demographic in the United States, save Native Americans. Well, they're not Native Americans, they're natives. So that is what we're up against. That's the challenge. That's what we have to reverse. And you should know this. I don't recall you mentioning this, but it was to that end that in 1989, when I was chairman of the board of SNMA, actually, no, I was region two director when I first founded MAPS, the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students. And it really was to not just empower and to increase opportunities for Blacks in medicine, but in the healthcare professions, whether it's nursing, public health, science, administration, etc. So I've been doing this work now, and as you should know, MAPS, I founded it in 1989. It formally became an SNMA thing in 1991. So we're well over 30 years now of that being a thing, all toward that same desired end result that was the basis of your question.
Mhm. Absolutely. And then I know you talked about the creation of maps and being a part of SNMA. But I don't know if you consider that or what would be the greatest accomplishment that you would say you have achieved throughout your career?
Career wise,
Hmm.
um, there is no greatest. It's like asking you which is your favorite kid. I think um, notably, uh, I don't know if you saw either of the two books that I just wrote, but I just wrote two books that chronicle the history of the Student National Medical Association for the 60th anniversary. One was Learning to Care, Learning to Lead, the history of the Student National Medical Association. And the second is Modern Healthcare Heroes, the legacy of the Student National Medical Association. And that really goes down not only the 60-year history of the organization, but looks at all that was produced in the organization. And for me, I spent 3 terms as chair of SNMA, and that was more pivotal in terms of legacy impact than anything else that I've done, because SNMA was actually bankrupt and about to shutter due to IRS debt when I first came on board. The way that story goes is in the same year, we literally got rid of, and I hate saying that, but it's true, we got rid of the national president, the chairman of the board, and the executive director within a 12-month period of time. And then I came on board and helped to rebuild the organization. And part of that rebuilding of the infrastructure was the foundation of MAPS, which from the very beginning was meant to be exactly what it is now, represented at over 300 college campuses. So in the short term, there's that as a public health proposition, but there's no way to minimize. I've been chairman and or medical director of 3 level 1 trauma centers. I have multiple successful businesses that are global. There's just so many things being able to do business and to save hospitals from closing and build infrastructures, participate in the world's largest universal healthcare program. I've done telemedicine in Japan for 13 years. I've had a pretty crazy career, but my heart always comes back to SNMA, and particularly knowing that there's now more than a generation of mappers who came through. It's a beautiful thing, and it it's so fulfilling because people always say, "Did you ever expect it?" No, we actually planned it. This is nothing less than it actually was meant to be from the very beginning. And so, yeah, that would have been the short answer, but I can't do that too much.
That's great, and I'm super excited. I'm actually attending AMEC down in St. Louis this weekend. I'm so excited that
Yeah, I gave the keynote speech last year. Where were you?
I was there down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So it's amazing the organization that it has become. So speaking of our Black Men in Medicine conference, Celebration of Excellence that we're planning next month, why would you say somebody should attend the event?
Well, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And what we don't do very well as a community is take control of our own destiny. As I mentioned before, we don't put ourselves in a position where people have to deal with us. We have to stop either looking for a Messiah to save us or waiting for the generosity of others to bestow upon us our rightful place. We're not the descendants of the enslaved as much as we're the descendants of kings. And forums like this actually provide opportunities for us to strategize, to plan, and to implement. So, as you are young in this game, that's what's so beautiful about SNMA. And as I said in the book, the title of the book was not just learning to care, but learning to lead. It is a laboratory by which you get the skills that will hold you for the rest of your life. So all these forums are opportunities for you to develop the critical thinking and implementation skills that will be a part of your life for the rest of your life, as long as you are a physician, public health professional, scientist, or anything else in healthcare. Because believe it or not, you're going to go from a point in time to where you're at the bottom of the totem pole to where you're at the top of the totem pole pretty quickly. And that feeds back into the original point that there's so few of us that once you enlist, you're immediately elevated. So these forums are opportunities for us to figure out what we need to figure out. Remember, I said that. Figure out what you need to figure out sooner so that you can do what you need to do better as you approach it.
Definitely. Definitely. And I know talked a lot about your experience and your journey into medicine, but can you name like one of the most impactful experiences that that has helped you in arriving at your goal of becoming a physician?
And becoming a physician,
Yeah, arriving at that.
um, that's the creation of MAPS. The story of how MAPS was created goes like this. I was a student at Northwestern, and the assistant dean for student affairs would famously tell all the black students, "Hey, man, you have a GPA of X. There's no way you're getting accepted to medical school." And I was president of the medical student pre-med organization called One Step Before. And I was like, this can't be my destiny. I'm going to be a physician. So I stopped listening to this guy and created an event called Medical Student Day, where I invited the deans of medical schools from all over the country to come to Northwestern to provide us with accurate information. And of course, I was there as head of One Step Before to greet them.
Mhm.
Having that event by itself elevated my candidacy and allowed me to get accurate information, which guided my path through Northwestern. And by the way, 15 of us who didn't have the stereotypically stellar um, GPA and MCAT scores and all the rest of that ended up getting accepted from my class from Northwestern. So that was the basis of MAPS, taking that same premise, that same organization, and taking it national so that we could have accurate information so that others wouldn't close the door in front of their own faces. So that experience, that repudiation from someone that was supposed to be an advisor and a means of support, ended up being the tool by which we became self-sufficient. We no longer could trust having to deal with them. We had to go get it ourselves. And we proved that we could. We proved that we did. Nothing less than that, nothing more than that. The mentors are great, but knowing what the actual path is so that you don't have to go about it in a roundabout way is actually critical. Shortest distance between two places, straight line. Find that straight line.
Sure, for sure. Find that straight line. That's great. That's great. And then I know you've shared a lot of advice already. But what would you say to the people coming behind you in this space, as advice?
Own it, period.
Own it, period. Love that. Nothing else
Well,
needs to be said there.
look, healthcare is the largest industry in the United States. We spend about $4.8 trillion a year. Are you going to spend the rest of your life being a worker bee? That's what physicians have become. We used to own all of this, by the way. In the 70s, we gave it away because we wanted to spend more time with our families instead of being entrepreneurial. So we gave it to the HMOs, and we've been employees ever since. So yeah, a few $100,000 a year sounds great, but when there's $4.7 trillion out there that's being exchanged as commerce, don't get it twisted. Somebody's making that money. At the end of the day, that money represents the exchange of commerce. Put yourself in a position to where you own your expertise, and the rest will take care of itself.
Absolutely. And wrapping up here, just the last question that I have for you, is how do we remain hopeful amidst all the current political turmoil going on today?
Hope is irrelevant. And see, there you go again. Hope represents the faith and belief that somebody's going to come save us and everything's going to work out. Don't be a fluttering butterfly hoping to find something to pollinate. Be a raging bull moving toward that target. Go get it. Bend the universe. Create your future. Own it. I'm telling you, don't trust
Right.
whether it's the government or whether it's your don't trust anybody. Go get it. You have it in you. We've built nations. We've created wonderful, wonderful things. Develop that mentality, own it, and just make good choices because we slot ourselves into levels of success. If you aspire to be a physician and you become a physician, okay, you've already done it. But if you slot yourself to be a surgeon general, or head of HHS, for example, whatever your goals are, work toward those goals because you got to be careful what you aspire to do because you just might get it, and that might be the extent of what you do. My experience in total, and I am MAPS. My experience has been as a physician, a public health professional, a serial healthcare entrepreneur, a mentor, a father, all the things that I am. You have to decide. And the sooner you decide, the better your life's going to be, who exactly you want to be, and make it grandiose and visionary enough that you can enjoy the journey instead of resting on your laurels once you reach the destination, because there's always another level. And as you continue, you will find that the needs are great. Working globally has just been Such a joy spending my time on other continents, having a diversity of experience frees you in ways I can't even describe. The experience that you have now, and you asking me a question about hope, you want to have a better brand of hope? Leave here and go visit somewhere else. Leave here, do business somewhere else, spend some time somewhere else. You'll come back here a different person. Do not believe the stereotypes, the hype, the oppression, and the other things that you would be subjected to just on the basis of you being a black male. Let's bring that back full circle. Being a black male is a glorious thing, always has been. It's been the original thing. Embrace it, enjoy it. And everything that we do is beautiful. Being an American is beautiful. You just you can't subject yourself to the whims of those that would oppress you. So position yourself to do better and be better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this discussion. You have expanded my mindset, my goals, and all the things that I've aspired to be. So I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to having you at the event and hearing your speech there. Um,
Anytime, anytime.
yeah, appreciate it. Anything last thing that we didn't cover that you wanted to discuss, or we can go ahead and
Just remember, at the end of the day, this goes back to your question about what an average day looks like. Life is an implementation project. It's not about planning. I mean, it's not about hoping and wishing. It's about planning and executing. Go get it.
I'm gonna go get it. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sterling.
All right.
Let me go ahead and end the recording now.